Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Chaffey County, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. There are other things going on out there. Thanks especially to the candidates for House District 60, for County Commissioner, and for the two individuals who have agreed to speak in support of and opposition to the Salida School Bond issue, ballot issue 3A. The League of Women Voters has established ground rules to ensure that impartiality and fairness are part of its candidate forms. The League does not endorse or oppose any candidate or political party, and the views expressed by the candidates here tonight are not those of the League of Women Voters. I will first review the ground rules and then outline the format for tonight's forum. The candidates have agreed in writing to these ground rules. It is expected that candidates will be civil and will not interrupt each other. Candidates may place campaign literature on a designated table out in the hall, but may not post campaign banners or signs. A moderator chosen by the League will enforce ground rules and time limits and will ask the candidates questions which have been written by the audience. The questions written by the audience will be screened by a panel to avoid duplication or unfairness. Questions should center on issues of importance in our state or county and should avoid any personal attack. Numbers have been drawn before the forum to determine seating order and order of opening statement. An alternating order will be used for opening and closing remarks and for responding to questions. In making their comments and responses, candidates may not use props such as charts or signs. They may use notes during their introductory remarks, but not thereafter, except to refer to notes they may have jotted down during the forum. Candidates must observe time limits on remarks and responses. They will each have 2 minutes for an opening statement, up to 1 minute to respond to each question, and 1 minute for closing remarks. The timekeeper will hold up a sign for 15 seconds remaining and a sign to stop at the end of the allotted time. This evening's forum is being recorded to be played on the local access channels. DVDs will be made and placed in the Buena Vista and Salida public libraries. The content is the property of the League and may not be used by the candidates in any way. Only media photography and recording will be allowed in the room. The format for tonight's forum is as follows. We will start with a 35-minute period for the three candidates for House District 60. They will have 2 minutes for an opening statement to establish their reasons for running, their qualifications for the position, and what specific goals they would like to achieve while in office. During the question period, they will each have up to 1 minute to respond, and following the question period, they will each have 1 minute for a closing statement. These candidates will then adjourn to the audience. The 5 candidates for County Commissioner will then come forward for a 40-minute period. We will follow the same format as for the candidates for House District 60. Finally, the pro and con speakers on the Salida School Bond issue will come forward. Each will have 5 minutes to speak, following which there will be 10 minutes for questions. The formal portion of the forum will end around 9 o'clock. Following the formal portion, there will be approximately 20 minutes for you to meet informally with the candidates and ask them questions personally, individually. We begin with the candidates for House District 60. The candidates with us tonight are Pierre Cohen, Curtis Emery, and Jim Wilson. Bruce Waters, who is also running for House District 60, was invited but was unable to attend. We will begin opening statements with Curtis. You're number 1, aren't you? You're on. 2 minutes. Okay.
Curtis, right before you start, I just wanted to say that you can write questions on a card, and if you have a question on a card, just raise your hand, and we'll pick the question up and bring it to the readers.
And pass
or pass it to the center. But just raise your hand if you have a question, we'll pick that up. So, go ahead, Curtis.
Evening, neighbors, and thanks for coming out and participating in this festival of democracy. I'm kind of proud to have been the original male member of the Upper Arkansas Valley League of Women Voters, and that we're lucky here where we have a chance to hear from candidates, hear from ideas about ballot issues. And this isn't happening in the other three counties where I'm campaigning: Fremont, Chaffee, Fremont Park, and Custer. So, thank you, voters. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jim. I've been in the county for 45 years. I've never missed a voter race in 40 years. What I do is donkeys, drama, and democracy. And I've basically been a public servant for the time since I said goodbye to Hollywood. But I wanted a life instead of a career, and fell in love with the land, the critters, and the people of Chaffee County. And I've been proud to be a two-time nominee for Colorado House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives. And democracy is what I do. And I think that as a write-in candidate right now, that my hope is that we have other voices and more choices and something besides the divisive partisanship which has crippled progress, in my view, down in the legislature. I've been an independent, Emory independent, for the last eight years, and I'm still slugging for social, economic, and habitat justice. And I'll be working on CPR to conserve, preserve, and restore the unique qualities of this high country pavement.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, and no one knows me here, unlike Curtis. I have spent my whole life in the, excuse me, while I set this right. I've spent my whole life in the service industries. First in the restaurant business, where I managed 2 80-plus employee restaurants, dealt with everything from personnel to, customer complaints, etc. Then I went into carpentry, where I've been a trim carpenter and a cabinet maker for the last 26 years. I'm still a small business owner and very proud to be one. And I'm very proud to be a female carpenter because I can guarantee you never see them on the jobs, okay? Second, I would like to do this because I live in the mountains. I built my own house. I cut 11 cords of wood for heat last winter. And believe me, I know what it takes to live up here. I've been coming up here since I was 15 years old to Park County, where my friends had a cabin in Como, and I love this area, and I decided that this is where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. Now, I live in a place that's pretty much isolated, but I plan to live there till I'm 85 years old, and I want to make sure that when I'm 85, that my water is still good, and everything around me is still good. So this would be my third career, and I would really like to devote my life, the rest of my life, to making sure that we in our district get everything that we need done, and we have some civility in our legislature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Myron, and thank you for being here. This is part of democracy, as Curtis was saying. I am Jim Wilson, the Republican candidate for HD 60. Basically, 3 reasons why I chose to run for this position. A lot of good people throughout the district said we needed some good people to step up, along with Representative Massey, and take this project on. And second of all, Christy and I wanted to give back to this area that's been so good to us. We really have appreciated and loved being here. And third of all, we prayed about it and felt like that's probably what God wanted us to be doing in this process. As far as qualifications, I have a background both in agriculture and education, being a person who was born and raised on a farm in Kansas. I know Colorado. I've been a superintendent in the Southwest at Mancos, over in Eastern Slope at Ellicott, as well as here in Salida before I retired. Also, I know rural and small communities, having lived in them all my life and been a part of that, and I love working with rural areas and rural entities. Having rescued the school districts from financial difficulty, which some of you are very well aware of in this room, I've had the experience of working with multi-million-dollar budgets and being a good steward of public tax dollars, which is kind of unusual in the legislature these days. My wife Christy and I, as I said, operated a family farm, so we're well versed in the private sector as well as the public sector. And because of that experience, I think that will be an asset to me serving in Denver. What I plan to do, I plan to assist rural and small communities on having a voice in Denver, which in HD60 we've lacked that in the past as far as a unified voice. We've not been unified in HD60, and I want to do that. I also want to be a person who works in the educational system and working towards results and doing that not just on good intentions, but good results in education, spending our dollars wisely. I'd also like to work towards some vocational training for our kids because unfortunately not all our children are geared for college, and when I say unfortunately, that's because they may not have a job when they get out. That vocational training is important. I'll work with fellow legislators in returning our state to its means, living within its means, and I'll be an advocate for property rights as well as agriculture and water rights. I am Jim Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you. We will, you have some questions for us? And I'd like to ask the candidates to remain seated when they respond to questions. It'll be easier with giving them the mics there. First question, and we'll start with you here. Tom Massie had a proven record of working across the aisle with Senator Gail Schwartz. If elected, will you continue that effort of bipartisanship? You have 1 minute.
Well, absolutely. The fact is that one of the big deals in our district is broadband. It's a job creator. It's something we need for technology's sake, keep our kids here, etc. And Gail Schwartz did put out a bill, basically, that was a broadband bill, and she worked with everyone else. I have absolutely no problem. I'm not an ideologue on anything in terms of, nothing's going to get in my way. I look at it as being a woman, I have to work with people all the time, and I've spent 26 years working in the construction business where women are not highly valued. So I don't think I have a problem at all with working across the aisle, and that was one of the reasons I'm running, is I'm very, very concerned about the civility or lack of. I mean, the Hickenlooper had to actually call a special session in this last time around. Well, he wouldn't have to call a special session for me.
Working across the aisle is something that's been rather hard to find, whether at the national level or at the state level, because the Senate is dominated by the Democrats and the House is held by the Republicans. So in order to get anything done in the House or the Senate, you have to get the bill passed in the opposite house. Working not only with Gail Schwartz, but also understand this is HD60, and in HD60 we also have Senator Grantham. So we have senators, more than one senator that represents HD60 or is a part of HD60. So in order to do that, you've got to work with all those senators that are in HD60 and unify that effort so that we do have that voice. The biggest challenge that we have in HD60 is to make sure that Denver in the House and the Senate understands that we do have 4 counties here, that we do have people that live here, and we do have concerns that oftentimes are not heard in Denver, and that's one of my goals, is to work both across the aisle and in the legislature to have our voices heard.
Thank you, Curtis. Is there a question now?
Yeah, there's a disconnect between the voters and the two-party system that runs the state right now. I applaud Tom Massie and Gail Schwartz for getting together and working in a bipartisan fashion. However, it's not the norm, and unfortunately both parties, to me, the major parties seem to, the extreme right, the extreme left, seem to polarize things, and so more often than not, principle is sacrificed for party politics. And I'm an independent because I have the feeling that Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Greens, whatever, there is no monopoly on good ideas. And I intend as an independent to bring mutual respect, humor, and ideas, energizing ideas, and consensus to the legislative process. It's 33-32 right now. If that 33rd person was an independent and could bring this tribal warfare to an end, we could have real progress.
Thank you. And next question, we'll start with you, Jim. If elected, how do you plan to stabilize the funding stream for higher education? And two, address the issue of education funding being in crisis in general?
Gosh, in 1 minute, that's hard to cover. Higher education has a real challenge facing it because it's not on the high list of priorities at the state level. The Lovato case now has pushed K-12 education into the spotlight. And if the Lovato case is pursued, then you're going to see a great change in financing in Colorado. The advantage that higher education has over secondary ed, which as a superintendent I always kind of envied that, is that if they need money, they raise tuition. And in K-12 education, if we need money, we have to depend upon the school finance formula. In order to secure more funding for higher ed as well as for secondary ed, within our budget constraints that we have in the state of Colorado, we'll have to make hard choices. Do you want roads? Do you want education? Do you want prisons? Do you want education? It's going to be hard choices. There's no magic money, folks. And that's going to be one of the great challenges facing whoever gets this seat next in 60.
It's education. And the more young people we have educated, the better chance we do to solve the challenges that are in front of us. I loved Mike Miles' approach years ago where he would say that just give me a tree. Just give me a tree and some good teachers and I can get the job done. And just simply throwing money at in buildings and facilities to me never replaces the good professors, the good teachers. And in my own case, I've either had to learn to live on less or make more money. It's a shame where you have a society where more money is allocated to prisons than to education.
Thank you, Peter. Well, this is the real bugaboo, period. This is thing on. Anyway, I know, I agree with Jim. Higher education is a little simpler because, like he said, you can raise the tuition rates. For the K through 12, this is a problem because so many people are out of work and basically the money is not coming in. And we have 3 things in this state that we have to take care of. And of course, part of it is the roads, part of it is the prisons, and part of it Medicaid and schools. So where you're going to get this money is beyond me at this point because I don't see, unless we try to, say with our lottery monies, do a sunsetting clause where we give for 5 years till our economy starts to pick up and more people are back to work. But at this point, the only thing that I see different from probably everyone else up here is I would prefer to see all the property taxes go into one fund and then fill that out to each of the schools. And that's basically how I look at it, is maybe we should try a whole different type of funding.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with you, Curtis, for this one. Shall utilities operating in Colorado be required to invest a certain portion of their revenues in so-called green energy?
I missed the first part of the question. What's operating?
Should utilities operating in Colorado be required to invest a certain portion of their revenues in so-called green energy?
I'm not a climate change denier. I really think it is maybe the critical issue, not just on the planet or the country or the state or the county. And anything we can do to produce incentives for more green jobs. And we've spent the last millennium, post-industrial age, tearing things up. And in this millennium now, we have to find the pieces and put it back together. CPR, preserving, restoring. And green jobs are out there. And green jobs are good for the good for the economy. And I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to ask the utilities to get real and look at the future and get off fossil fuels and get more towards wind, sun, renewables, sustainables.
Thank you. Peter?
Okay, I'm definitely all for the green economy also. Right now, nationally, we do 4% in funding for renewable energy. Those oil companies are still making a fortune out there, and you know what? They don't even clean up their own messes when it comes down to the bottom line. We live in a place where I can't tell you how many people say, "Oh my God, it's so windy here." Well, you know, we have wind, we have sun. You know, Colorado, 300 days a year, we have actual sun out. And I know for a fact that on my roof at 9,600 feet, that I put a thermometer one time, and it was 10 below out, but on my roof it was still 70 degrees out there. So, you know, no one can tell me there's no solar energy out there. The other thing is that we have the geothermal. So I think that, like with Curtis, when it comes to the bottom line, you create jobs, because plumbers, carpenters, electricians all go back to work when they get to, you know, install green energy. I'm not saying that we can be completely off of it, because that's a fallacy to believe that. But we can certainly get better than we are right now.
Well, the question was asking, should they be required, as they are now? There's a percentage that they have to look at as far as what they supply to us has to come from an alternative source. I have a problem with the word required, because it's America, and I happen to believe in the capital system. And I believe that if someone wants to start a solar program and it's going to be cost efficient and cost effective, they should be allowed to do so. But I'm not a big fan of requiring any business or any individual to conform or comply with standards that are imposed by the government. I think we have too much government imposition right now, and the states should be allowed to do some of the things on their own. We have tremendous opportunities here in HD 60, both with solar as well as with geothermal. We have some tremendous potential, and there's got to be some opportunities there for some business people, such as sitting right out here, that can start those and make those economically viable to supply that energy at a much lower cost than what we have now with fossil fuels.
Thank you. Let's change directions now. We'll go back this way. We'll start with you, Karen. This is a two-part question. Do you support campaign finance reform? If so, what would you do to support this reform?
Yes, I do. I was on the Clean Campaigns for Colorado, because I believe there's just too much money right now in politics. I mean, this has gotten out of hand. And I'm a little guy, you know, I'm not getting nothing. You know, I had to spend my IRA when the economy tanked the last time. And believe me, when everyone in the legislature is a doctor or a stockbroker or something else, or, you know, made their fortune and now they can go in and run, that's great. I'm the poor guy, probably sitting at this table right now. You know, there's no pension in my future unless I make some good money in the next few years. So the fact is that, yes, I do support campaign finance. At this point, we have people behind the scenes that are basically running the show, and it's happening everywhere. You know, Montana, just basically, they had a law that you couldn't buy out their campaigns, and yet we have a Supreme Court that said, yeah, too bad, we're just going to override that law. So yes, I'm for clean campaigns, and I will do whatever I had to help support that.
Curtis?
Dollar democracy is really putting the nail in our vanishing democracy's coffin. The Citizen United decision by the Supreme Court that calls corporations persons, and it's totally out of control now, and it's not government by the people for the people, it's government by the corporate special interests and for the corporate special interests. And I've been a long advocate for getting big money out of politics. And I'd go even further than that. If you really wanted the common good, the commonwealth served, I think you need public financing for a public result. And we the people, we own the airwaves, the radio airwaves, we own the television airwaves. We could simplify this greatly, and you, every one of you, could contemplate standing or running for office. As it is now, the money situation discourages a lot of people. The dollar democracy doesn't cut it.
Jim?
Well, there's a two-part question. There's also two pieces to it, because I'm going to assume that the person asking the question was asking about Amendment 65 that's on the ballot for campaign finance, which there's a couple of issues there. One, that's a federal issue, and asking the state of Colorado and the legislators to actually try to alter the national campaign financing, which built into that, you cannot bind a state legislator to vote a particular way, so you need to keep that in mind. As far as campaign financing, strangely enough in Colorado, we really do have pretty stringent campaign financing laws. The accountability for campaign financing being new on the block is amazing. In fact, if our state had the same accountability for its own budget that we have for campaign financing, we wouldn't have a problem in Colorado. What I would do as far as campaign financing, make sure that it's transparent, make sure there's a limit on the spending, and at the national level, folks, we've got to close the loopholes because we went through this not too many years ago. Super PACs came in, they found loopholes, and that's what we have to deal with.
We have another question here, and we'll start with Curtis, I think. Am I hearing the right one? If elected, what new ideas would you pursue?
Well, I love it that the balance is now 33-32 in the legislature. If that 33rd person was a nonpartisan, unaffiliated, honest broker to tribe up these partisan warriors, I think we could really move this state forward. I have no huge personal agenda except to get a bigger and better piece of the pie for my district. Denver, the Front Range has all the power, but if you had an independent down there being a tiebreaker, I think I could broker and work with compromise, work with consensus, work with mutual respect, work with humor to bring these parties together. And, the public funding idea is big for me. The climate change so-called challenge could create opportunities for jobs. I think that bring that to the table. And I'd also like to eliminate this trailer tax. It's as tough on trailers as they are on cars.
What I would like to do is to unify HD 60, as I said in my opening remarks, but there's also another piece to that. One of the things I found is that in the state of Colorado, out of 178 school districts, 119 of them have 1,500 or fewer students. That means there's a lot of rural and small communities in the state of Colorado. Given Colorado Springs, the I-25 corridor, as well as the I-70 corridor, that's where a lot of the power lies in our legislature, amongst our legislators. But here's the key. If you build those relationships, like we talked in an earlier question, whether that's reaching across the aisle or building that within your own party, to pull all the rural and small communities together, we will have a unified voice, and we can offset what we call, now the phrase is for the common good, for the larger number of people. Maybe they'll find that rural and small communities have a significant number of people that can be heard in this state.
Okay, the first thing I would do is modernize the Anti-Discrimination Act. We are like 41st in the nation as far as how bad our Anti-Discrimination Act is. And what this is, it's not just anti-discrimination against you're black and I'm white, etc. It's females, sexual harassment, it's elderly, you go into a job and they think you're too old, it's handicapped, you know, they look down upon you. So there's the one thing. Second, I'd love to see someone name what the proprietary ingredients are in the fracking fluids that they're using in my county. And I'm not saying to stop fracking, but I think we at least have a right to know what they're going to poison us with. Okay, and the third thing is on the broadband issue. Gail Schwartz has been very good about, you know, doing a survey to find out where we have the need for the broadband. Well, I'd like to do a real quick Band-Aid and basically state what's rural and what isn't, so that the money that CenturyLink has been sending to Aurora and to Parker now comes our way.
Thank you. The next question asks, what specific actions do you plan to take to create jobs? Jim.
The number one thing for our community is we are seeing literally as we sit here tonight in our own community of Ohio, that the expansion of broadband services is going to be the savior for rural and small community. We have to have access to the same world, to the same business community that everyone else has access to. We have a problem with manufacturing as far as transportation, if you're driving US 50 or you're trying to go Highway 24. So we've got to have a connection with the outside world. So the big key for job opportunities, I believe, will be in the expansion of broadband. If you visit Wendell Pryor, he talks about all the different people that would like to come here. We're not talking major manufacturers, but we're talking about people who can employ 3, 4, 5 people. If they had access to broadband, they could come here, move here, expand their business here, and consequently then we would see our communities throughout HD 60 be able to grow at a controlled rate with broadband.
Thank you.
Okay, again, I'd like to see us do
Yeah.
some more renewable energy type jobs, because knowing that there's, let's see, what is it, 17% unemployment amongst the construction workers in this country, I think that this is one way for us to basically get some of them back to work, expend some of our energies doing this. You know, we've all heard about the tax cuts and how the wealthy were going to, create all these jobs. I'm still waiting. Where's that middle mile guy for the broadband, I don't see anyone doing that. At this point, I think that, we still have to find ways to get these things in here. And until we can get some of those really wealthy people to start, relinquishing on some of the tax money they've saved on, I don't see us getting these jobs in here. So right now, I would love to see us expand on the renewable energy, broadband, of course. And at this point, I'm open for suggestions because I'm one of those persons that's been looking for work for a long time.
You can't eat the view in central Colorado in these 4 counties. I think anybody who moves here should know that. However, with new technologies, the Lone Eagle sensibility, and I've reluctantly joined that crowd. When I first moved here, we put in a 4-person party line, and I still couldn't make a living in the county. And finally, faxes came in, and I was able to work on independent films away from New York, and now with digital, sometimes to me it creates often more problems than it solves, and I have to limit my time at the library when I go in there. But I feel that there is a real possibility with independent thinkers, Lone Eagle creators, to work in this heaven that we have here. I also feel that local foods, we can bring that back, and any kind of sustainable green jobs. And also, let's, it's a plantation system right now.
Curtis, your time is up. You finish your sentence.
Those jobs that the prisoners are doing all the time should be given to kids and people that need work.
We have time for one more question before closing statements. This question, I guess we start with you, Kara, on this one. Legislators, what is the most important reason you are running for the State House?
Well, I guess it's back to that whole civility thing and trying to get something done. The other thing is that, I chose not to have children, and this would be my 3rd career in life. I'm very devoted to politics, and I am very fed up. The other reason is that I'm watching around the country as women's rights are slowly but surely getting taken away again. And I thought, is this 2012 or is this 1912? I'm still trying to figure that one out. And I'm here to fight for women's rights as well as everything else. We still are 50% of this state, whether people like it or not. And I'm here to fight for people. I'm not one of those little pansy Democrats. I'm definitely a fighter, and I'm proud to be one. I've had to fight my whole life, and I have no intentions of giving up now. And if it means that I have to go to the legislature to do it, well, by God, I'll go to the legislature to do it.
Thank you, Curtis.
I'm doing it because it's what I do. Somewhere along the line, I got the political virus, and I don't disdain politics. I think ideally it's about brotherhood and sisterhood. And I worked for a long time in a major party, and I was tired of the polarization and the differences I had party members who are also friends of mine, but in another party. And if anybody's had more fun in central Colorado, in Chaffee, Custer, Park, and Fremont counties, I don't know how they can stand it. And my attitude is that I owe. Call it noblesse oblige or whatever you want. There's plenty of things to fight for in terms of social and economic and habitat justice in this district. And I would love to do that for you in Denver.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, as I said in my opening statement, I owe a lot to this area and wanted to give back. But as I've gone around through the four-county area, there's two things that stand out. And one of those is it really touches your heart when you go to any of the four counties. And in each of the four counties, I've heard this statement: don't forget about us when you get to Denver. Don't forget about us. And that really touches me because, as I tell them, I said, I've had a career. I had a career in education and loved it. I'm not looking for a second career in politics. I simply want to serve and give back for some of the things that were given to me. But I can assure you that phrase, don't forget about us when you get to Denver. I fought for rural and small schools and rural and small communities in both Colorado and Kansas, and I can't wait for the opportunity to get to Denver and to make our voice heard. Because one of the things that I can assure you, in education for 40 years, they know me in education in Colorado. I think they'll know me in the legislature too.
Thank you. We will now move to closing statements, and we're going to reverse the order we started with Curtis. So we'll start with you, Jim. You have 1 minute.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that your challenge in this process will be to cast your vote for a person who I think has to have three abilities. First of all, the ability to search out the concerns of the people in HD 60, not just in each county, but in HD 60 as a group. The ability to articulate those concerns and make sure that those concerns are heard at the state level, and the ability to work with people, which in education I had to do that no matter what the situation may be, so that not only will we be heard, but those will be acted upon. Because of my experience in agriculture and rural and small communities, I can relate to the people in HD 60. Because of my experience in the public sector, I can explain complex issues in understandable terms. And because of my 40 years in education, I have a track record at both the local, state, and national levels to get things done without sacrificing my conservative beliefs. And I actually have experience being fiscally responsible with public tax dollars. I look forward to serving you. Again, I'm Jim Wilson, Republican candidate for HD 60. Thank you.
Well, you heard me before. I'm going because I want to give back also. This time, I want to give back to everyone, and I want to keep my community safe, clean, efficient, and basically thriving. And we can't do that unless you have people that are willing to make those sacrifices. I also want to make sure that women don't lose their rights. And we have, the Christian Coalition out of Colorado Springs that every year puts on a personhood amendment for their ballot issue. This time, I think that we are in a time where we need people that can get past their ideological views and start taking care of what's happening in this country. We are in really a Depression-era attitude right now. And I can't tell you how fiscally conservative I've had to learn to be over the last 5 years. So, my name is Pierre Cohen, running for House District 60, and I'm the Democrat up here.
Curtis, speaker.
I guess I'm the none of the above candidate. There's a line at the bottom of your ballot beneath the Democrat, the Republican, and the Libertarian. There's talk about people just being space fillers, holders. I've been running for this for about 20 years. I'll keep running for it until I drop. But I've been of service on the board of directors of the Western Organization Resource Councils, the Western Colorado Congress, KN Radio. I've had 3 grand champions at the National Western Stock Show. I've won the World Championship Packboro race 3 times. I'm in it for the long haul. And if you're going to bet against me, you better bring the lunch. But I would hope that you take out your pen, you check the box, and you write in my name. I'm humbly asking for your vote.
Thank you very much, all 3 of you, candidates for House District 60. And now we'll find musical chairs and